Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, July 14th regular Planning Commission meeting. Call the roll.
Bauman,
Present.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanila,
Yes.
Trudell, Amick,
Here.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Rake,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Goodman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, with that, can we stand for Pledge Allegiance?
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4, approval of the June 25th, 2026 regular meeting minutes. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Goodman, second by Commissioner Ziegler. Is that correct? Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanila,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Rake,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to agenda item number 5, case 2026-44, Minot Legends Club. Public hearing request by Justin Aumann, representing the Minot Soccer Association, owner for a request for a zoning map amendment from R3 Multiple Residence District to Public District. Legal description for the property is unplatted portion of Southwest Quarter, less Elk Heights and Road, Section 27, Township 155 North, Range 83 West, Ward County. The current property is unaddressed. With that, we'll turn it over to staff for finding and report.
Chairman Offerdahl, members of the commission. Here we can see the subject property outlined in black and the 300-foot notification area denoted in pink. This property is in western Minot, and they are requesting a rezone from R3 to P Public District. Here you can see a very preliminary site plan of what their project is. This is very much out in the future, but this is a concept plan of what they have proposed for this particular property. Currently zoning is R3, multiple resident district. There is ag, general, commercial, public, R1 and R2 adjacent. The future land use designation is gateway commercial. There's also suburban residential, general commercial, neighborhood commercial, urban residential, and public and institutional adjacent. Here we can see an aerial view of the property. This is facing north. Second aerial facing west, and a third facing south. Comments were received from the Ward County Highway Department showing that there is a potential alignment for the southwest bypass that's being proposed. You can see this is a concept and one of many potential alignments for this road, but they did provide comment that this property does fall within one of the potential alignments for the southwest bypass. Here is staff finding of fact. It can be found in staff's written report. The Planning Commission has the authority to hear this case and make a recommendation on whether it should be approved or denied with or without conditions. Staff does recommend that the Planning Commission adopt staff finding of fact and recommend approval to the City Council for zoning map amendments from R3 Multiple Resident District to P Public District. With that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff? Any questions? Okay. With that, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody in attendance wish to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Mr. Alman? If you can state your name and then I think there's a sign-up sheet there for you.
Okay. Hello, Commissioners. My name is Justin Aumann. I'm the current board president for the Minot Soccer Association. Just to give a a brief summary of what we've been working on. About 3 years ago, we purchased this property. The Minot Soccer Association's been around since 1985. Really, the last 10, 15 years, it's been continuing to expand. We have several different programs. We have the rec program, where it's all kids locally from 4 to 14 participate against each other. We have a competitive program that travels around the region, and an adult league for anyone to join, as well as what we call an academy for kind of adding more training for other youth in our area. So with our expansion, we have over 2,000 players a year that participate in all of our various programs. And we found that we're running out of space. We've been running out of space for a while. Outdoor, we use the Minot Park's Optimist Park up on North Hill. If anyone's been up there, you know the parking's well exceeded of what we've got, and all the fields are in full use kind of throughout the spring and the fall. In the winter, we run all these same programs, much more limited, but we rent a facility on the state fairgrounds, and that is very much too small for kind of the needs that we have now. The competitive program in particular, there's a summer season and a winter season. We compete against all the different cities in North Dakota as well as in the region. So we have 2 fields in this current building that we rent. And so we determined kind of our biggest need is a new indoor facility. One that we would own, be able to maintain ourselves, rent out to other groups whenever it's available. So our current preliminary plans would be to build a building that has 4 practice fields in it. It would be turf facility, along with an ancillary building connected to it. And so with this property, our first phase, what we're concentrating on is to try to build an indoor facility, would include all the grading, new water and sewer lines, and a parking lot attached to that. I'd be open to any other questions you guys may have.
Any questions for Mr. Almond? I guess I got one. What is your reaction to the comments from the Highway Department? Does that impact your future there?
Because of my profession as a civil engineer, I was aware that the Ward County's been looking at doing both the outer bypass and what I would consider the interconnector or extension of 30th Street Southwest. I knew that this was potentially coming up. In general, we're in favor of this road. This would be, I think if it gets built, this would probably be the primary access to this property from a big chunk of Minot. So I think it would add to the access of this area. If they need to purchase some of this property, it doesn't limit us from building this indoor facility. We'd be willing to negotiate, with selling some of this property, if that results in a roadway.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Mr. Almond?
Yes, I have one. So if approved, do you guys have the funds to start construction immediately? And if so, how long do you think the construction would take?
We're still working on raising more funds. Ideally, we would break ground this fall. More than likely, we'd break ground in 2027. So we're still raising funds.
What's the total price tag that you're looking at?
We've had architects do some various preliminary concepts. So roughly, I would say $6.5 million for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? We'll call you back up if something comes up.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Public hearing still open. Anybody wish to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Anybody wish? Mr. Hayes.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Mike Hayes. I wasn't here to talk on this specific, but one incident with the comments that came up is something that happens quite often in the city of Minot is the state DOT puts a flag on that property but doesn't pay the owner for it, doesn't do anything, but they restrict their property. And I don't think your decision for these, the plans of the soccer association should have bearing on what the DOT may want to do, will do, or who knows if they will do. You know, that's down the future, but yet they're tying up a piece of property that somebody else owns. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing still open. Anybody wish to speak for or against this agenda item?
I have some letters from some neighbors, if I could read them.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Chairman. I would like to say before I read these letters, no one is against the children playing soccer next door. It's mostly about the infrastructure that surrounds where the proposed facility will go. So I just wanted to say that before I read them. First letter is from Nancy Farhart. I am writing in regards to the Minot Soccer Association request for a zoning map amendment from R3 Multiple Residence District to P Public. I have concern regarding traffic, flow, road conditions, accessibility, and amount of traffic on the roads, especially 20th Avenue Southwest, Elk Drive, and 22nd Avenue Southwest. The new soccer complex will most likely significantly increase the amount of traffic on these roads, which I feel will most likely cause structural damage to 20th Avenue Southwest, as it is not always in the best of shape. Access to and from 20th Avenue Southwest from Elk Drive, 22nd Avenue Southwest is not always easy. There frequently is much traffic from Elk Drive that causes traffic to back up at the intersection, and all-way stop at that intersection would help with the flow of traffic, even without the addition of the Soccer Association members driving there. Increased traffic on the way to and from the soccer complex will also impact the traffic on 22nd Avenue Southwest and the intersection of 22nd Avenue Southwest and 16th Street Southwest. Currently, there are several times throughout the day when cars are backed up to Kohl's waiting for the traffic light to turn green. The line for the left turn lane can also back up at times, and it takes several lights to get through that intersection. Is it possible to put in a left turn light and or time to time the lights so that more cars can get through the light? Again, that was from Nancy Farhart. The second letter I have is just in general from the 28th Street neighbors. We do, as neighbors adjacent to the new proposed soccer complex, have concerns. First and foremost is the traffic. As of now, our 20th Avenue is not equipped to handle additional traffic. It seems the city and construction trucks are still using our road as a way to the landfill. We have difficulty accessing 16th Street off 20th Avenue with no left turn signal. Some of us have waited 20 minutes before being able to turn north. With the additional soccer traffic, this will be a nightmare. We are also concerned about increased foot traffic, parking in front of our homes, noise and lights. First responders may be delayed in response times with additional traffic. We love our area and feel this is not a good location for a complex. Thank you, the 28th Street neighbors. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Public hearing is still open. Anybody for or against? Okay, so that will close the public hearing, and we'll turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
I'll move to
This is
approve.
Commissioner- I'll
Okay.
second.
We got a motion to approve by Commissioner Doctor and a second by Vice Chair Bauman. Any discussion? Any discussion? I guess I got one question, and I see Emily out here, so I might put her on the spot, but I know we've had this conversation a few times with 20th and the landfill in the past, and then we also have the addition of 30th now kind of going out to the hospital. So is there any plans in the future to improve either of these two roads if something like this were to come around?
Yeah, Chairman Offerdahl, so maybe I'll answer that question. I'll also maybe address a few of the comments that were in the letters. The existing 20th Avenue, it was overlaid a couple years ago. The portion adjacent to the residences is probably in okay shape. The portion adjacent to the proposed complex here looks like it probably could use some additional patching. I drove it earlier today. With the relocation of the landfill main access down to 37th Avenue, the truck traffic has been greatly reduced. So We will, if we do some additional patching, those patches are actually going to hold up now because we're not sending nearly the amount of traffic we were. The city water treatment plant does still use the back access gate. That's 3 or 4 trucks a day is my understanding. Occasionally, there'll be some contractors that coordinate with us to get let in the back gate if they're bringing waste material that we use for daily cover at the landfill. That's just on a case-by-case basis because it is a locked gate, so it has to be coordinated ahead of time. So compared to when that was the main access to the landfill, way less truck traffic. With that item, the existing intersection with 20th Avenue, the T to 22nd Avenue Elk Drive, with the traffic counts, that probably would not be a good candidate for an always stop. There's maybe some other things that we could look at in the future. The intersection, the traffic signal at 16th Street is part of a DOT project. It actually was supposed to be built this year and it got delayed to next year. So that signal will get replaced and protected left turns will be a part of that project in 2027. So I think that would address a lot of the traffic concerns there at 16th Street. As far as future plans, we see 20th Avenue kind of staying as is until sometime after the southwest bypass stuff all plays out. Also, depending on how fast things develop farther south on 30th Street and all the vacant property down there. Just the timeline of how fast things develop would dictate when the city may come in and do like a full reconstruction urbanization of 20th Avenue, but that's many, many, many years away. Did I hit on most of the things?
I think so.
Any additional questions?
Any additional questions for?
I'm kind of curious as to, in an ideal situation, and this may be for you or for Mr. Allman, in an ideal situation, how many people will be using the facility at one time?
I guess I would estimate in normal situations, the most that would use the facility would be about 60 participants. One weekend, at this point, one weekend a year, we host a tournament, which is held at Minot State, and hopefully in the future, we would also have some here. That would be a larger group, because you would have 60 coming and 60 leaving, so you'd have a little more traffic for that one weekend. But other than that, it would mostly be, that's probably a good estimate.
So any further discussion amongst the commissioners here? The public hearing is closed.
This is Commissioner Baum. Oh, go ahead.
I have
Commissioner
another question about parking. That was the concern brought up. Is there going to be ample parking?
So would you guys like to reopen up the public hearing so we can discuss this with the public? Could we get a motion on that? Because we did close the public hearing, so we're going to have to open that back up.
Yeah, I'll move for that.
Okay.
I'll second.
We got a motion to reopen up the public hearing here by Commissioner Parker and a second by Commissioner Ziegler. Is that correct? Okay. Carry on, Commissioner Pontiello.
Yes. What are the plans for parking, just to avoid what's happening?
I'm sorry, we
up
got
at
to
North
vote.
Hill?
We got to vote on that. I apologize.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, my fault. So let's call a roll on voting to reopen the public hearing. Sorry about that, Mr. Allen.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanila,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, carry on. Sorry about that.
Okay, again. What are the plans for parking?
When I mentioned parking concerns, our outdoor facility was built in the early 1990s, and so that parking lot was designed to that size based on kind of the amount of use at that time, and now they're landlocked. For a brand-new facility, the parking lot would be designed, I know the city has specific requirements for parking spaces per size of the building. And so we would be sure to size it appropriately. Once we add on any outdoor fields, we would add to the parking because we've dealt with the issues as well. So we would make sure there's enough.
Okay. I'm asking because that was a concern that was voiced in the letters. Yep.
Public hearing is still open. Anybody wish to speak for or against this agenda item? Any additional questions for the applicant or anybody in the crowd? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and I believe we need to have another motion. Or do
There's
are we
still a
going to vote on the
motion.
current motion?
There's still a motion on the
Okay,
floor.
Still a motion on the floor. Motion was approved by Commissioner Doctor and seconded by Vice Chair Bauman. Any discussion amongst the commissioners here? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call a roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanila,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item 5.2, Tallberg Shores Third Edition, public hearing request by Rob Berard, representing Four Season Construction owner, for a request of a preliminary plat and a vacation of right-of-way. The legal description for the property is lots 7 and 8, block 3, and lots 1, 2, 3, block 4, plus vacated portion of 11th Street Northwest, Tallberg Shores, addition to the city of Minot. Property address is 1101 25th Avenue Northwest, 1000 24th Avenue Northwest. With that, and 2401, 2404, 2408, and 11th Street Northwest. That will turn it over to staff for finding and report.
Chairman Offerdahl, members of the commission, again, we find our subject property outlined in black and the 300-foot notification area denoted in pink. They are proposing a replat of these lots and to remove the right-of-way for the road that goes in between them. So here's a picture of the preliminary plat. This would take it from 7 lots to well, it'd be 5 lots to 8 lots. So we're looking at an increase in density here. One thing I did want to point out on this proposed replat is they are removing that right of way, which will make this a very long block to drive around. But they have included a 10-foot public sidewalk easement. So they will be bisecting these 8 lots with a sidewalk so that the kids north of there don't have to walk all the way around to get to the existing Optimus soccer fields to the south of there, which is also a public park and is available and open for public use. So there is a pedestrian connection to cut through here. That was something that was kind of talked about with the applicant. Having to drive around isn't such a big deal, but walking, it got to be a very long block. So the applicant is willing to put in a sidewalk. It's also important to note that there's that little circle with the insert in there. They are also dedicating right-of-way that will allow the Safe Routes to School project that was up in the area that built sidewalks along 24th Avenue and east of there. They're giving a little bit of an easement so that those sidewalks can be connected to the sidewalks for the new Tallberg Shores. That has to do with a difference in right-of-way width, but the applicant is providing an easement so that there is sidewalk connection going east and west and north and south. Currently, the property is zoned R1, single-family residential. There is C1, P, and R3C adjacent. The subject property designation is suburban residential. There's also public institutional and parks and recreation adjacent. Here we can see the subject property facing east. Another area looking south. And another area looking north. Here is staff finding of fact. It can be found in staff's written report. The Planning Commission has the authority to hear this case and recommend whether it should be approved or denied with or without conditions. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt staff finding of fact and recommend approval of the preliminary plat and easement vacation without conditions. With that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff?
Is there any infrastructure underneath that road? Pipes or water connections or anything?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Parker, yes, there is some existing infrastructure within that subdivision. There is, however, no infrastructure underneath that particular piece of roadway.
This is Commissioner Bauman. I just want to say that I really appreciate the attention to the 10-foot right-of-way sidewalk to kind of cut up the block so it's not super long, and then also the detail with making sure that the new properties align with the current Safe Routes to School program.
Thank you. Any additional questions for city staff? Any questions? Okay, with that, we'll open the public hearing. Does anybody in attendance wish to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Mr. Hayes.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm the property owner, and the reason why I'm in, it's a plat that hasn't come in front of you because it's, for the most part, ready to do curb and gutter and paving. Reason why I'm coming is development costs. To vacate that roadway saves 250 feet of paving, curb, gutter, but in water services, maintenance for the city down the road. But the reason, the offset for that is the easement for the walk path, the easement on the east, the southeast lot for a walk path also. So there's connective, as soon as those homes are built, there's nothing there for anybody to get to those soccer fields on North Hill right that adjoins this property. So I have preliminary engineering on connecting the southeast easement to the current walkway within the soccer field property. It just hasn't gone any farther than my preliminary engineering to the Parks Department to see what can be worked out with that part of it. But right now, and it also helps with parking, it's a public street down there. So anybody's entitled to park with their homes down there, or once the roadways are turned over to the city. So it allows a lot more off-site parking to access the help with the alleviate 21st Avenue there. So that's it. Thank you.
Public hearing still open. Anybody wish to speak for or against this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll turn it over to staff for a motion.
Move to approve based on staff recommendation and finding of fact.
Second that.
I believe I heard Vice Chair Bauman motion to approve, and was that a second by Commissioner Parker?
Correct.
Okay, any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, call roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanila,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 5.3, lots 1 and 2 Southeast Ridge Business Park, 4th edition. Public hearing request by Rustin representing Schatz Properties LLC, owner for a request for a preliminary plat and zoning map amendment from MH Manufactured Home District to M1 Light Industrial District. The legal description for the property is a portion of the Feist subdivision and a portion of the Gold Nugget Edition, Block 2, and Southeast Ridge Business Park additions, Block 1. Lots 16 and 17 located in the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 29 Township 155 North, Range 82 West, City of Minot. The property address is 1306 37th Street Southeast, and the adjacent lot is unaddressed. That will turn it over to staff.
Chairman Offerdahl, members of the commission. Here again, we see our subject property bound in black with a 300-foot notification area denoted in pink. This property is located in southeast Minot. They are requesting a replat of industrial land and some mobile home properties. And it's kind of important to note that this is like a land swap. We're dealing with some of the mobile home property is going to move into industrial, and some of the industrial is going to move into mobile home. But they are looking to just kind of swap some land between these two properties. And here we have the preliminary plat. So you can see that the industrial lot, two lots, are going to grow backwards. And then the vacated right-of-way on the north is going to be turned over to the mobile home lot so that access is maintained for that mobile home zoned property. Staff supports this as it supplies connectivity for both lots. It allows the industrial property to grow to the size that the person who's developing it wants for their rear storage in their industrial lot. Here we can see the zoning. Currently, the properties are zoned M1 Light Industrial and MH Mobile Home District. There is also Ag, C1, C2, MH, PR1, and R2, all adjacent. The future land use designation is light industrial. There's public, institutional, suburban residential, urban residential, ag and open space, manufactured home, and ag and open space again. I don't know why that's listed twice. Here we can see aerial view 1. We are looking north. Aerial view 2, we are looking west. And aerial view 3, we are looking south. So on the very bottom of this picture, directly below that developed industrial property, that is the property that will be growing to the west, and that access will be granted to the property behind, which is zoned mobile home. And as you can see, it is already a developed mobile home district in the area. So they want to keep those entitlements in place in case there were a desire to expand that mobile home community. Here's staff finding of fact. It can be found in staff's written report. The Planning Commission has the authority to hear this case and recommend if it should be approved or denied with or without conditions. Some additional staff finding of fact. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt staff finding of fact and recommend approval to City Council for the preliminary plat for a zoning map amendment to rezone Southeast Ridge Business Park 4th Edition Lot 1 to MH Mobile Home District and Lot 2 to M1 Light Industrial District without conditions. With that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff? Any questions? Okay. That will open the public hearing. Anybody in attendance wish to speak on behalf of this agenda item?
Chairman Offerdahl, members of the commission, my name is Rustin Rotlick. I'm representing Schatz Properties on this project. The summary was well done by Planner Dietrichson. So I'm just here to answer questions if there's any additional questions right now.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Rotlick? Okay, we may call you back up. Thank you. Public hearing still open. Anybody wish to speak against this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak for or against? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, got a motion to approve by Commissioner Ziegler.
Second.
Okay, we got a second by Commissioner Yamick. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, call a roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanila,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to 5.4, Summer Text Amendment, LDO Cleanup. Public hearing request by Brian Billingsley, Community Director, Development Director, my apologies, representing the City of Minot for a request of a zoning text amendment, the Land Development Ordinance addressing park impact fees, data centers, minimum residential lot sizes, accessory dwelling units, R3D, row home district, commercial landscaping requirements, minor subdivision plating, processing, and parking regulations. With that, we'll turn it over to staff.
All right, we're gonna jump right in. So I know this is the first time some of you have done a large text amendment. And so I was just gonna go over kind of how these work. And so again, these are recommendations to City Council, so that we'll still go through another public hearing. So if you don't feel like you need to be an absolute expert in all this right now, if you'd like to table one of these, we have them chunked out into eight changes. And so if you'd like more discussion on one, you can take one out and still do the other 7, and you can approve or deny each one separately. So we're just going to jump right in with data centers. So we currently have no regulations for data centers. If a data center was to apply for entitlements, we would be required by ordinance to create a use category and regulations. And so as of right now, we have no one looking at Minot. So it would be a good time for us to sit down and really think about what we want to see, where we want them to go, how we want them to be regulated, while we have no pressure on us. So that's why staff is bringing this to you tonight. So first thing we have is the data center definition. A facility used primarily for the storage, management, processing, and transmission of digital data, which houses computer or network equipment, servers, and other equipment, appliances, and components related to digital data storage and operations. Uses that include data processing as ancillary to the principal use on the property shall not be considered a data center. We put that last line in there because technically I have a computer at my house and it processes data. And so I don't want my house to be a data center. So it's when it's the primary use of the property is to only process data, that would be what gets caught into this data center definition. And that's important because the definition gets tied later to the use table. And so for the data center regulations, the very first thing we have is the electrical utility agreement. So the applicant would submit documentation with the building permit application demonstrating the ability to obtain adequate electrical capacity supply to support the data center as agreed by the energy provider. Right now, we don't know if it would be Excel or Verendry, but one of them would have to provide a letter that says they can support this. A lot of data centers are actually moving to building their own power. So this, if they were to be supplying their own power, this would become null and void because they would be their own electrical utility provider. Something to keep in mind. Second, for water and sewer, the applicant shall submit documentation with the building permit application demonstrating the ability to obtain adequate water supply and sewer capacity to support the data center as agreed by the utility provider. City of Minot would be that utility provider. So they would have to come to us to ask this question, and therefore we would have that opportunity for public input. Third would be a noise study. The applicant must submit to the planning division an affidavit or certification signed by a professional engineer with demonstrated acoustic engineering experience stating the cumulative predicted sound pressure levels from the project of the specific project phase under review, accounting for concurrent operation of sources not including operation of backup sources. That is, how loud is the data center on a normal day? The existing measured ambient cumulative sound pressure levels at the lease or owned property land boundaries. That's important. So how loud is it at the property lines? If we're talking an ag parcel that's 60 acres and they put it right in the middle. How loud is it at that boundary, and is that a problem? Model and report the predicted cumulative sound pressure levels based on known components out until equal to or less than levels established in section 23-108 of the City of Minot Municipal Code. That section, 23-108, is our noise code. So for them to be using the amount of water they're typically going to need, they would be in city limits. So when you're in city limits, you are under our noise ordinance. And our noise ordinance has in it that sound levels at lot lines can only go over certain amounts. And for industrial areas, I believe it is up at the 70s or 80s. But that would only be a lot line between two industrial zones. So to give a theoretical example, let's say a data center was to go out into our industrial park. That's to the east of the airport. Not a lot out there. If they're surrounded by industrial, they would be held to the industrial noise standard. If, in another example, they go to a different spot where they are surrounded by something else, then they would be held, and I believe in residential goes down to about 50 decibels. So that would be the standard they're held to there. And if they're not able to meet 50 at their property line boundary, they would be required to build mitigation. Think if you've ever traveled on a freeway, the freeway sound walls. That would be an example of something they could propose. You can go to the next slide, Doug. And then finally, where would we put them? So we put them under heavy industry. They would be conditionally permitted in industrial districts M1, M2, I1, and I2. They would not be allowed in commercial areas, as commercial areas have the most chance of being next to residential. We do have some industrial properties that are close to residential, but we feel that as long as it's inside city limits and we're able to use our noise ordinance as a shield, we would be able to build the appropriate noise mitigation to deal with it. We hope that this is nowhere near any residential and it's out in the industrial park, hopefully next to the ironworks. And hopefully those two are so annoying that it won't, you can't argue that a data center is worse than an iron plant. So that's how staff feels about this. I'd love to hear your guys' input. This is still very much so an active discussion. And with that, this is the end of change number 1.
So what's the commission's request here? Should we just break these changes down and then have a discussion and public hearing on each one and a vote? Or,
Yep.
I mean, I think that's ideally what we've done in the past, and I think that works the best. But I'll leave it up to you commissioners to have your input on this.
I think that's a good idea. Do we need to motion to do that, or?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
I think we can just go through. So basically what we'll do is just go through each change and then go through the public hearing, go through the motion on each one individually. The most likely, maybe they won't all be on the same boat anyway, so I think if we just go one by one, is that acceptable? Okay. Perfect. So then with that, that we just had the staff's finding and report. We got any questions for the city staff on this particular change 1, which is data centers?
So yeah, I had a quick question. So, so the part on noise, that would essentially be replacing like any type of setback, correct? That would allow them to provide examples of how they could reduce the noise without having to violate any setbacks.
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Parker, I can't hear you very well.
Oh, sorry.
Could you please restate the question?
So the part that you put in there about the noise mitigation, would that essentially be replacing setback requirements that other places are using?
Commissioner Offerdahl, Chairman Parker, yes. We feel that setbacks are kind of an arbitrary way to do it. Like I know in the county, they give it a 2-mile setback. And while being 2 miles away, yeah, you're probably not going to hear a whole lot. I feel like there's the more elegant way is to just know how loud it's going to be. That can all be calculated and then mitigated with the appropriate walls, berms, whatever would be required. A component I forgot to talk about, that's number 4, is there would be a lighting plan required, and they would be required to shield their lights so that it doesn't look like the sun is coming up on the horizon either. So
I just wanted to say I appreciate that approach. I think that that's an elegant solution to, encourage economic development while still protecting, the overall purpose of setbacks.
So, I've got a question. First, thank you. This is really, a lot of work on something that's a contentious topic. And so thank you for the work on it. I think number one, you're talking about having a letter stating that it can be supported with energy, right? Electricity. Is there a way to add without an adverse effect on the customers so they're not absorbing the infrastructure for it? Or is that something that's out of our reach?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Pontanilla. I don't know how I could make someone do that. Now, I know that, for example, I think it's Basin Electric has that already in, where it says that the utility has to basically, or the data center would have to create the capacity to work with what they're doing so that it isn't adversely affecting others. I know just based off of our maps, Excel is usually inside our bypass, and the majority of our houses are Excel Energy. Outside of it would be Verendry, and they're a co-op, so they would have a way to publicly voice their concerns about something like that.
I know. Okay, thank you. I know that's a huge concern for people, especially as we've just gone under an increase, and there's another company asking for an increase. So it, just looking at that, it looks a little suspect with these popping up.
Yes, and it would be staff's hope that the data center would fall more under they create their own power. We'll talk more about this at the next planning commission when we have another raft of text amendments, but we've been asked to draft regulations for what's called energy conversion facilities, which is the bureaucratic way of saying power plants. So the ironworks could potentially build its own power plant, and then that power plant could potentially power other things being maybe a data center. So.
Following along that same line, Mr. Falconer, what regulations and protections do our residents have for noise pollution and air quality pollution from the creation of a natural gas or power plant of some sort here?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Bauman, I will get to that more next month when we talk about, there's a whole siting act that the state has that I'll read through, and we'll cross that bridge on that one, if that's okay.
Okay.
What about water use and sewage? I see a lot of that being talked about, that they use a lot of water and it's going through our sewage system then. What impact does that have on the city cost-wise?
It would depend, Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Reich. It would depend on what type of water they use, if it's potable or non-potable, and if it's a closed loop or just active, always running. The ones that I did my research on tend to be closed loop ones, so they'd fill up and then they would top off periodically. Again, since it's the city of Minot giving all that, I would assume that we have a very stark way of saying yes or no, like, no, we need to keep the water for our people. I mean, we're not a city that has a lot of water to begin with. So the city staff would prioritize residents over this.
Good questions. Any other questions for city staff?
I think my last question for city staff is, while I appreciate the forethought, just thinking about the way that things work, if we do not approve guidelines for a data center, does that mean a data center won't come to Minot?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Bauman, no, it does not. It just means that when they do, if they do decide to show up, I would just have to draft the ordinances then. So the way it works with this use table that you're seeing on the monitor right now is if we can't find a category that they can kind of fit in, then we need to make a category. We can't ever just say no and then they never can come here. There's no way to block anything. I know there's a lot of columns on here and a lot of colors, but there is no category that is just gray all the way across. So.
Okay, any other questions for city staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody wish in attendance to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak for or against this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
Commissioner Bauman, I'm actually going to move to table this issue for another month.
Okay. When it's a table, I believe we just go to a vote. Is that correct? Do we need a second? Okay. Okay, we got a motion to table for one more month.
Second.
We got a second by Commissioner Goodman. Any discussion?
I would just like to explain a little bit. I really appreciate the work that the staff has put into this, and the table or the idea to table is by no means disapproval, but I also know that we are living in the Wild West of data centers right now, and every week it seems like we get more information about what the impact is, whether it be water usage or ambient sound impacts or heat island impacts. And because we don't have an applicant for a data center at this time, I think that we would be benefited as a community, and all of our neighbors would also be benefited by taking as much time as possible to percolate the impacts that we're seeing around our country as data centers are popping up and operating for a really long time. So this isn't an approval or a disapproval, but it is I think, more procedural. I feel like it's a strong procedural move to just give us more time to look at things. I also would love to see staff possibly look into a clause in there related to NDAs, I think, which is something that, as I did a little bit of searching and just reading about data centers, there have been a number of approvals or processes, especially in neighboring Minnesota, where decision makers have been forced to sign NDAs, and public light really hasn't been shined on the process. And I would like to make sure that our residents and neighbors know that any and all conversations regarding data centers in our community and their impacts are going to be public, and everyone will be able to see all of the details and information.
Chairman Offerdahl, if I may speak.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Bauman, North Dakota open records laws does not permit a public entity such as the city to contract around open record laws, and so we would be prohibited from signing NDAs that conflict with applicable open records laws and open meetings laws, is the quick answer to at least that portion of your statement.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yep.
Any discussion?
Just had a quick question for the staff. The zoning and regulations you're putting forward, are those similar or different than other cities in the state, like Bismarck or Grand Forks?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Parker. So when I did my research for this, I went out to the American Planning Association is where I started, and I found a whole wealth of regulations. This ordinance is also modeled off guidance we got from the North Dakota League of Cities that was sent to us by our attorneys. And so it's kind of a fusion of that. Loudoun County, Virginia is where I took a lot of this inspiration, as well as Manhattan, Kansas. And what I ended up writing, turns out it's a lot like Bismarck. So we kind of came to the same conclusion about this. If they're out in those industrial areas and you just don't let them get close to town, then the amount of regulations you need anyway, you know, it's all proportional. To answer your question, yes, it's all. It's not as bad. Like Ward County's is like 7 pages long. As an example of they don't even have it like off the table. They still have it as conditional. It's just then there's 7 pages of conditions. I did take out a lot of the design standards and things of that nature, like how the building needs to look, because I'm hoping that it's off in a farm field and that's not a question we're really going to need to address, because it won't be something someone looks at every day unless they work there.
If one were to come in and be like, hey, we want to be smack dab in the middle of the city. If one were to come in and we were to be like, hey, we don't want to be in the industrial park, we want to be smack dab in the middle of the city, what would our options be then to do any type of design regulation if we passed something like this? Would it be limited, or would we then be kind of stuck behind the 8 ball?
Well, I mean, while there are still some industrial holdouts in the center, like old downtown is still zoned industrial, there's not any industrial that's going to be in those areas. I mean, off of Valley Street, there's some, but nothing that can support a project of this size. I mean, they're looking for like 200 plus acres when they do stuff like this. And as it is conditional, you would be able to put conditions on top of it. We do have design standards in our industrial districts. They're nowhere near what we have for, say, commercial or downtown, but it would still require multiple building elements, multiple construction materials.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? We currently have a motion on the table to table. Made by Vice Chair Bauman and second by Goodman. So, any discussion? Okay, not, call the roll?
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanila,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, change number 2. This was initiated by City Council to direct staff to explore reductions. This is part of a directive from Council to increase our housing supply. Our housing study also identified that we need to be building many more homes than we have been. Setbacks and minimum lot sizes have been identified as potential avenues to getting home prices down to a level that is affordable for first-time home buyers. And so these tables here are our setback tables. And the big takeaways from here is that we're starting to inch them down. Now, we picked these limits based off of what we usually see for variances. So the areas of town that we have in mind here are the areas that are still undeveloped, our zombie subdivisions, so to speak, the ones that were platted during the oil boom and have never gotten built out. What would it take to get those off the ground was our kind of guiding thoughts with this. And so we have had Mint Construction come in twice in the past year and ask for variances for that 47th loop. And so what they were asking for was basically what this brings it down to. What were those old lots set to? Some of them are only 90 feet deep. Some of them are only, 30 feet wide. And so we want to make it so that you don't need to get a variance every time you want to build a house in one of these old subdivisions if you're not going to have to redo them all. Because there's nothing necessarily wrong with how they're set up. They were just set up in a different era. And so I'll go through the changes very briefly here. So we got a front setback, which the front setback is 25 usually, going down to 20. Front with a side load garage, where the building is the first thing and the garage is secondary, would be from 20 to 15. We have a side setback from 6.5 to 6, a side corner from 20 to 25, 25 to 20, and a rear from 20 to 15. We would be removing our lot depth requirements, and instead, we noticed that was a redundant category because we had depth and then we also had area. So you can calculate what area that would need to be by taking our width divided by the area, and that gives you the second dimension there. So we felt that was redundant, and we would let developers put whatever lot they would like as long as they can meet that square foot. So for an interior lot in R1, it would be 60 feet. With the corner lot would remain 75. The interior lot would be 6,000 square feet, giving it a 60 by 100 lot. For a corner lot, it would be 75 by 100 or 7,500. In the extraterritorial, it still stays 2 acres, and that's to enable septic systems. And those kinds of changes percolate through this. It's the same with R1S. It's the same with R2. R2, we wanted to enable housing to be developed on them, even if they weren't going to be necessarily twin homes, because in the R2 district, we also allow single-family detached already. We're noticing that we weren't able to build those based off of requiring a 65-foot single-family home width, even though the lots are smaller. And so we brought that down to 32 feet and then 48 feet for the corners to allow for that additional setback. You can go to the next slide, Doug. And then for section 3.1-2, we're removing RM from that so that you're able to, you don't need to include 2 lots together anymore, because that was confusing to, I mean, it was confusing to me when I first joined why it was so big, because then I'd have to go find this section. Oh, I can divide this by 2. So to make the table a little easier for everyone, we're just going to not do that and just make it the smallest size it can be right away, and you can obviously go larger than that. These are minimum requirements, not maximum, unless it's lot size. And so for RM districts, we added the single family regulations are the same you saw before. RM is kind of a district where we allow lots of different housing styles, and so we wanted to clearly differentiate multifamily regulations from single family regulations. And then in RH, we just did some housekeeping of things that weren't necessarily required. And then you can go to the next slide, Doug.
That's it for the changes.
Oh, and that's it for change, for number 2 changes, setback reductions. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for city staff? Oops, sorry about that. Any questions for city staff?
I would just like to add, the goal here was to create flexibility in design for residential lots. Our housing study, I keep beating this drum, but we need houses. We need a lot of houses. We need them built right now. We have some existing lots, and we have land that's available to be subdivided. Some subdivisions that are available for further subdivision that we could increase density in. So this is providing for more flexibility of lot design so that a developer can go in, they can purchase a piece of property, and they can put mixed lot sizes into a single zoning district. They can have smaller, dwellings with some affordable homes and some larger lots. They can do that mixed income, mixed housing style, mixed housing type, and allows for more flexibility, which makes property more profitable to developers, makes it more attractive to them to buy it and develop it.
Okay, any discussion for city staff?
This is just going to make it easier for the developer, the contractor to come in and put a house on a smaller lot like we've been approving already. This just makes it easier for them.
Chairman Offerdall, Commissioner Ziegler, yes. So some of our zombie subdivisions, Bolton Heights being one specifically, you would be able to take some of those twin home lots and build small single-family homes on them if you wanted to, which is more, we've heard from developers, is more attractive to them. We did that PUD in Stonebridge.
Yep.
So you're thinking small, affordable, single-family homes. You don't share any walls. You got your own house. It's your own place. You and your kids can move in. You got a yard. It's not a big yard, but you got a yard, and it's yours, and that's attractive to people. But it can also be built that's affordable for those first-time home buyers.
Thank you.
I just want to say, great work on this, staff. It's great to see forward progress with being able to remove some of the barriers to first-time homeowners. And we know that purchasing a home is a huge way that Americans save for retirement and build some equity and some financial stability. Plus, we need more homes in this community, and they also reduce the taxpayer burden for the future by more effectively using the infrastructure that we've got. So it's just really exciting to see progress on this, and I'm really excited to support it.
Just out of curiosity, about how many lots do we have an idea of what the impact might be, just opportunity-wise, from the housing study?
Yeah, and we're in the
Rough estimate.
250 to 300 range.
That would be accurate.
Platted available lots ready for development right now that this would affect.
Excellent, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody in attendance wish to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Mr. Hayes.
Good evening. Just a few points on this. The staff did a phenomenal job. A lot of hard work put into making these changes from a builder, developer. The question is, like a lot of twin lots around town, you can join them together. You have to abandon a sewer and water at the expense of $6,000 to $8,000. The cost of two lots, you're at a $320,000 home and up, as opposed to some of these regulation change or ordinance changes. It allows that affordable, considerably affordable housing market. And you'll see a substantial number of those coming online here or available over the next few months and then on into the next years. So the various changes really is going to impact Minot for the building industry, make a big difference. But again, thank the staff for all the hard work that went into this. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing still open. Anybody for or against this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak on this agenda item at all? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Turning over to commissioners for a motion.
Motion to approve.
I move to approve.
I'd second it.
All right, we got a motion to approve by Commissioner Parker and a second by Commissioner Ziegler. Is that correct? Any discussion?
Man, Aaron, you beat me out. I was ready to have my name on this one, but I'll concede.
Just got you.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanilla,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, Chairman, members of the commission. Removal of foundation plantings. This is a small and minor text amendment that comes from a lot of headaches. This is a directive from council to make the LDO less restrictive. This particular piece of landscaping has been identified by contractors and corporate stores as a difficult hurdle from a design standpoint. When we start hearing from the outside entities, those big corporate entities that are coming into Minot and saying, how are you wanting us to do this? Dollar General was the most recent one. We've seen a few Dollar Generals built here. How are they building foundation plantings when they have their upfront displays outside of their property? Another one is gas stations. Circle K, when I was working with them when they came to town and did the remodeling. It's just been kind of a headache. So staff is recommending foundation plantings be removed as a required landscaping element. It's important to note that we would still credit any developer that used foundation plantings towards their stormwater landscaping, and it would also be counted as parking lot landscaping. So if a developer does not need that clear storefront and they do incorporate foundation plantings into their landscaping designs, they would get credit towards their landscaping requirements. However, they are not required to place foundation plantings on all commercial properties going forward. So it becomes an optional element that you can incorporate into your landscaping plan if it fits your design in the aesthetic. Banks, things like that, they like to have these foundation plantings, these planters around the edge of their building. They will likely still use this towards their foundation or their required landscaping square footage, but it is not required anymore. With that, I'd stand for questions.
Any questions for city staff?
This is Commissioner Bauman again. Are we? I worry a little bit. Let me rephrase this. I'm sorry. Is there any way that we could be supportive of potentially retail and gas stations in the reality that foundation plantings may just die after the first year, without throwing out all of the requirements? It feels like it feels like gas stations and Dollar General stores are maybe a little unique than, Broadway or the Burdick Expressway and some of the aesthetics that we would want in the community for like those areas.
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Bauman, I can really only give you like staff perspective on that, and we still require our street landscaping, our street trees, our parking lot landscaping. There's still a requirement for the square footage. It's 20 square foot of parking lot landscaping per parking spot. So the square footage of landscaping in front of the building still exists, and they could choose to use foundation plantings as part of that square footage. It's just we're not requiring that as an element specifically anymore. But as staff, we felt there's enough front of the building landscaping requirements and that square footage minimum still exists, that we're still going to get the landscape aesthetic in the front of commercial buildings that we're looking for. It's just this element becomes optional as opposed to required.
Okay, so the optional part is going to be that it's in front of the bill or the foundation planting, kind of covering the foundation, but the community is still going to get the same beautification benefit regardless. It just all might be in a different place rather than right along the foundation of the building. Is that correct?
That is correct, Vice Chair Bauman. And their square footage requirement doesn't decrease in any way. This becomes an optional element as opposed to a required element.
So they can plant it in a different place where people won't put all their cigarette butts or the sidewalk salt won't go and kill the plant.
They can put it in parking lot islands. They can put it in bump outs. They can put it at their access. They can incorporate more street landscaping and along their street trees and things of that nature if they so choose. If it's like a Dollar General, and they were one that was an issue. A lot of the retail stores, especially the ones that want to put items out front in between the exit and the entrance door. These are the ones that were really having a lot of trouble with this. It's not specifically Dollar General. It's just that's the retail store that we've seen quite a few developed in the area recently. There's been other stores that have kind of pushed back on this. It's very difficult specifically for retail, but it's difficult when you have C2 properties. We have to treat all C2 properties the same. I can't treat retail differently on a C2 than I treat, say, a bank. So we kind of have to tailor it. All C2 properties have to be treated the same regardless of how they're being developed. I can't single out any specific use. So like I said, some folks may choose to use this and continue to use this because it fits the aesthetic. Some may not. Their square footage requirement for front of building landscaping is still there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for city staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak for or against this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak on this agenda item? Public hearing is now open. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Goodman and a second by Commissioner Amick, correct? Yep. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, call roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanila,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Members of the commission, on to change number 4. We are looking at removal of most of the parking minimums. This is initiated by City Council and directing staff to find solutions to reduce the requirements of the LDO, and from guidance from the American Planning Association, who is also been saying, let's stop making our cities parking lots and start developing them. This kind of comes from City Council members saying, it's up to the business owner to decide how much parking they need. And if you show up at the business and there's no parking, then they lose your business. So it's up to them to provide parking that is adequate to support their business and their business model. So I don't think we need to go through all of this, but as you can see, and it's also important to note we have removed all industrial parking minimums from the table that was done last year. Staff has encountered no problems associated with removing of parking minimums from industrial zone properties and industrial uses over the last year. So the next step is commercial. I would like to point out that we are maintaining residential parking minimum standards. This is to make sure we don't have houses built without driveways on streets that aren't designed for that level of parking, and to look at multifamily housing, which has a high potential to be located within residential neighborhoods, and not providing adequate parking could have significant impact on the adjacent property owners. So the only parking minimums that the planning staff is recommending that we maintain is multifamily and single-family parking minimums. And those are pretty basic. You just look at a duplex, you got to do so many per unit. Apartments, the same, how many per unit you have there. And then single-family homes, it's pretty much just 2 spaces. You got to at least provide 2 spaces if you build a single-family home. Your garage does, however, count as a space. So if a multifamily unit were constructed and they had garages, each one of those garages counts as a space towards their minimums as well. So, but I can kind of go through here. I don't think we want to sit and listen to me list off all of the different commercial uses, but it does encompass all of our commercial uses listed in our use table. It would remove all parking minimums and maximums. Some of these uses remain permitted, and those would be allowed. That's the ones that the property owner would just be allowed to set their own parking minimum. Conditional uses, which are uses that have the potential to have a higher impact on adjacent property owners, would still come to this body for approval, and if you saw parking as a potential issue, you would still be able to direct the developer to provide a certain number of parking spots. So it's important to remember that our use table has permitted and conditional uses. Permitted uses are uses located in districts that have a low potential of nuisance to adjacent property owners. Conditional uses have a higher potential of nuisance to adjacent property owners, and parking minimums would still be a standard that this body could impose on that use if you felt that it was necessary. So it's not that we're just erasing parking from the equation entirely. If a conditional use were to come here and you were as a body to say, oh, this has the potential to be a parking nightmare, you could look at parking as a condition of approval of their conditional use permit. With that, I would stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff?
Would existing commercial businesses be able to then take this and remove some of the parking they have if they so chose?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Parker, yes. So this would allow some of those perpetually empty parking lots to now be subdivided off and additional businesses, cited there. We've had asks like that recently. I got this parking lot. It's 3 times bigger than I ever fill. And even on Black Friday, it's half empty. I'd like to put a coffee kiosk or a coffee shop out there. Can I subdivide this land and sell it to someone else who wants to develop it? Yes, it would allow for that. granted that it not be under a conditional use permit. If it were under a existing conditional use permit, that would be a change of use on the property, and that property owner would have to come back to you for an amendment in their conditional use permit, at which point you, as a body, would be able to decide how much parking they do or do not need.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Vice Chair Bauman.
Yeah. Mr. Dietrichson, am I correct in my understanding that we would be the lead community in North Dakota to do this?
Chairman Offerdahl, Vice Chair Bauman, yes, we would be leading the way in the state of North Dakota on parking minimum removal. I'm unaware of any other major city in North Dakota who has gone this far in removing parking requirements, which should make us very attractive to potential developers.
Are there potentially a couple things that we can take off of here? Like I happen to notice something like funeral homes. They tend to be on smaller parcels, a lot of street parking that happens with them everywhere, where they can become problematic.
Chairman Offerdale, Commissioner Goodman, my recommendation would be to approach that from moving those uses in those districts into conditional so that parking can be assessed on a case-by-case basis. We have to treat every funeral home the same on the same kind of zoning. However, if some funeral home were to be permitted in, say, the R1 district, which I believe they're a public use, and in some cases they are allowed, my recommendation would have us assess that, move them into a conditional use as opposed to a permitted use, so that parking can then be case-by-case studied. Because you may have a funeral home that goes on 4 acres, and you may have one that goes on half an acre. But from macro zoning perspective, it's difficult to take a specific use and single it out like that. But the conditional versus permitted is where we would want to assess individual uses in that way. Dan.
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Goodman, also careful that I know there's, like, for example, there's a lot of funeral homes in the Central Business District. Central Business District right now does not have parking minimums. So even if we took it off the table, the funeral homes downtown wouldn't ever see any difference. This would only ever apply to someone coming in and doing a new development, just to keep that in mind.
It's just the best example I could think of on the fly.
Again, my recommendation is if in the future we saw something that became a problem with parking was an issue, we would recommend that you move it from permitted to conditional within that district, because likely then it's a permitted use that's going off without any oversight, and then you move it into a use that does have that level of oversight with a conditional use permit. It allows us to accomplish this goal of making us business and development friendly by removing parking minimums, but then if there issues arise, it gives us an opportunity to move things to where there's oversight.
Any additional discussion for city staff?
I guess I don't have a question, I just have a comment. It would, in my 18 months of being on the commission, it would seem the most talked about thing is parking. Whether it would be a group home, whether it would be for the soccer association new building, or anything else, and they all say, well, just comply with the parking requirements. Now we're gonna delete the parking requirements.
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Amick, that is true. However, not most of the time when we're running into these discussions, especially group homes about the parking issues, those are conditional uses. So you will still have the oversight of if a group home comes into a residential neighborhood, you can still do as we've done in the past, 2 on-street parking, and then your driveway and anything else you have to. We've made them lease from adjacent parking lots and adjacent commercials. So it's really those conditional uses, those larger uses that don't fit in a residential neighborhood or don't or have that high potential for conflict with adjacent neighbors that end up with the parking discussion. So those will still fall under those conditional use permits. And if we were to run into one that was, again, a problem child that we didn't anticipate, we can always modify the conditional versus permitted table and move them into a conditional use so that parking can be assessed on a site-by-site basis.
So if I may, so if the soccer association decides that we're only going to build 60 parking spots because we're only going to have 60 families there at a time, the neighborhood's going to be fine with that?
The Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Amick, the soccer association has requested a rezoning to public, which means all development on their property must be master planned. And that master plan is approved by this body. So we're catching a lot of these parking issues either through the master planning process or the conditional use process. Our real problem childs are all under those categories. Those park and recreation and outdoor recreation uses that just draw in crowds, and those uses that, we allow it in a neighborhood, but does it really fit there? Group homes and things of that nature where we've had this discussion in the past. We're catching those with either the master planning process or the conditional use permit.
So like a group home, even if they had less than 6 residents, it would still have to come before us for a special use permit?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Amick, no, they would not. However, when they have less than 6 residents, we feel like the parking externalities are lower. They don't really have a parking requirement that's much higher than a single-family residential home anyways. So if less than 6 resident group homes became an issue, we could have a discussion about a text amendment to moving that in conditional use. Your average home can have, your family with a husband, wife, and 4 kids hit 6 people. That's kind of why we've kind of hit it there. So they have the potential to be, once all those kids are in high school, have the potential to be as much of a nuisance as a 6 resident group home.
Yep. Good questions, good discussion. Any other discussion for city staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak for or against this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak on this agenda item?
Hello, Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioners. If you read in the staff written report in the packet, hopefully you had seen that the engineering department did submit comments on this item. As much as we would love to be in favor of it, we just have some reservations about, the small percentage of times where this could become an issue. As it's been discussed, there's a lot of these that are taken care of in master plans and conditional use and things like that. But there still could be times when it's a permitted use and it's commercial adjacent to a residential. And if this is gone, then there's really nothing that we can do about it. What I would like to point out is that our current parking tables are a starting point. In other places within the parking chapter, we then give a lot of options for flexibility. So, we allow shared parking, we allow standalone parking. You can submit a parking study by using the ITE parking generation manual, which lists a lot more categories of items than our table does. You can do demonstrated parking, which is evidence that similar uses and locations operate successfully with lower amounts of parking, that your proposed use has a high rate of turnover, so you need less parking. Occupants are, of a certain age or certain demographic that maybe needs less parking. There's a lot of options in here that people can present to city staff where we can, there's also just an administrative reduction of like up to 20%. So if they're really close and they're just short a couple spaces, we have some flexibility, we have some options, and the engineering department's opinion would be that we'd rather have this as a starting point, and then if people are having trouble meeting their parking or don't think they need it based on this starting point, that they utilize some of these other options for reducing parking, rather than just having no minimums at all, because unfortunately there will be a time when someone comes in and builds something that just doesn't have the parking. I know ideally a business would only build or move into something that would be adequate parking for their customers, but something could happen. And then if you're the residential neighbor next door, then I think once there's a problem, now it's too late to go back and fix it if we completely eliminate it. So, we would be more in favor of having more of these options to make it flexible so that we can reduce on a case-by-case basis. Even doing some reductions, or like the industrial, not a big deal. There's usually not residential near industrial, so that hasn't been a problem. But just getting rid of it entirely makes us a little nervous. So we just wanted to make sure that was on the record and make sure that everyone was kind of thinking about all the scenarios that could play out. Anybody has any questions?
Any questions?
So would that be, you're more concerned about like people parking in front of people's homes because the business gets full? Is that kind of what I'm gathering?
Yeah, some overfill parking, because that's completely legal to do so. It's a city street. As long as parking is legally allowed, you can park in front of anyone's house. It doesn't have to be your own house. But we know, because we get the phone calls, as does the planning department, that residential neighborhoods don't necessarily enjoy repetitive parking of people who are, not part of their neighborhood. It's completely legal, but it is a concern to some neighborhoods.
I'm just curious, and I'm new, so forgive my ignorance. To combat that, would there be able to be signs that put up, say, like 1 hour limited parking, something like that during these hours?
Chairman, commission members, potentially, right now I think generally in all residential areas, it's more like a 24 or 48 hour parking that's enforced by PD, which, only has like one parking officer for the whole city for every hour of the day. We have some restrictions downtown on time limits, which goes along with there not being any parking requirements downtown. You want to make sure that there's higher turnover, that people are moving in and out of those parking spaces, keeping them freed up. I guess that would be an option. Now you're adding signs, and now those signs, if you say this is like 2 hour parking or 4 hour parking, that applies to everyone, including that homeowner and their guests, and so pros and cons of that as well.
Thank you. Okay, public hearing is still open. Anybody wish to speak for or against this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll turn it over to, or Vice Chair Bauman, did you have something to say? I kind of heard you speak up there.
I did, but I think it all got answered, so I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. We'll close the public hearing and turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
I'd like to move to approve as presented by staff.
We have a motion to approve by Vice Chair Bauman. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Reich. Any discussion?
I had a quick question. So would this have anything to do with any handicap accessible or disabled parking requirements, or are those like a different?
Oh, Chairman Hofferdal, Commissioner Parker, absolutely not. They are still bound by federal law to provide all ADA required spaces. They have to be paved with concrete. They have to provide a ready access path from that space to the front door and to any public walkway. So this would absolutely not remove their requirements for ADA accessibility to their building and to their property. That is federal law, and removal of our parking minimums would have no effect on that.
Thank you.
As the person who brought the motion forward, I do want to just take a moment to acknowledge the engineering department's comments and appreciate the concern there. And I think that those are really great and valid, talking and thinking points and things to consider. I guess my support for this comes from, when we look at a T-chart of the pros and cons of this decision, I just see so many more pros for the future of our community. And, as in terms of making sure that we're being responsible to taxpayers, one of our biggest things as a community is always to provide infrastructure. And as we continue to build out at the periphery of our community, we're always going to be responsible for building more and more water and sewer and streets, and then maintaining and caring for all of that as well. As we start to remove parking lots or empty parking spaces within our community, we allow us to build economic growth on the footprint that we already have. And that is something that reduces the burden on property taxes in the future. And so I see it as a really fiscally responsible choice for our children and our grandchildren and the people who haven't even moved to Minot yet. And so there's a really great value to that. I agree with our colleagues on the city council about it being attractive for developers to come in as well. Some studies find that a parking space, even in a city like Minot, is somewhere around $5,000 to $8,000 to build and maintain over the lifetime of the building. And so if we can help build small businesses, and if we can help developers build and grow within the footprint of our community by removing some of those burdens, I think that's a really big benefit to all of us. And then I think from the community development side of things, parking lots just kill neighborhoods and the ability to walk from place to place and to be able to have a closer sense of community rather than just having giant seas of parking spaces between us. And I know that there's always going to be a need for those parking spaces, and I'm not trying to be idealistic and think that we'll get rid of all parking lots, but I do think that there is a value in allowing a developer rather than the city to determine, and a business rather than the city to determine what is going to be the best fit for them, for the neighborhood aesthetic, for what they can do, and kind of build from there.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I can't support it because I don't think that we should not have no parking plan, nothing at all. So I'd vote no, so.
Thank you.
I agree with city staff.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call a roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanila,
No.
Amick,
No.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodman.
No.
Motion carries.
All right, we move on to change number 5, increasing access to accessory dwelling units. City Council has again directed staff to implement our housing study, and in doing so, increase housing supply. So this one looks at a partial implementation of the housing study recommendations. It also follows guidance from the American Planners Association, and it's considered a strategy to boost housing options. So here we have our accessory dwelling units. So this is section 4.1-4 housing accessory dwelling units, section E. Currently, we listed out zoning districts, and we've started getting away from this in our zoning ordinance altogether, and just changed that to all districts where permitted. So we have our existing accessory dwelling units must be owned by the owner of the primary dwelling. One on-site parking must be provided. No more than one accessory dwelling unit is allowed per residential site. Here's where the changes come in. Accessory dwelling units must be at least 300 square feet and cannot exceed 960 square feet. An additional total floor area shall not exceed 70% of the living area of the primary dwelling unit. And an exception may be granted for a basement apartment that occupies roughly the same area as the square footage as the top floor. That one's difficult to require a lower square footage when you've got top bottom floor the same size. You can cut out a part of the basement they can't use or something. We're taking out F, where the accessory dwelling unit must be designed so that it can constructed to allow easy conversion back to a single-family home. And now we are moving into a limit of 1 detached accessory dwelling unit shall be permitted on a lot containing a single-family principal residential structure. Accessory dwelling unit shall be of the same architectural style and constructed of the same material as the principal dwelling structure. Accessory dwelling units must be placed on a permanent foundation and cannot be manufactured home or temporary structure. An accessory dwelling unit can request a separate address from the primary dwelling, and an accessory dwelling unit must be occupied as a place of residence and not used as for home-based business. So at this point, we are moving out of attached accessory dwelling units, apartment buildings, apartments within your home, and allowing things like mother-in-law cottages and things like that. Again, you're going to be bound by all of your setback requirements, all of your maximum lot coverage requirements. So in order to have a cottage on your property, you will have to have a property that is large enough to fit that within your maximum lot coverage. So I want to remind you, there's all kinds of other development requirements that come into this. You can't just fill your backyard with a second single family home that's 70% of the size of your property. You'd way exceed your maximum lot coverage. You would way exceed you wouldn't be able to build within your setbacks and all of those different things. So if you're going to have a cottage on your property, you're going to need a large lot. But say my home, I have my house and my attached garage. If I wanted to build an accessory dwelling apartment above my garage, assuming my foundation could support that, I could do that because I'm not increasing my lot coverage and I'm still within my accepted setbacks. Thinking about it in terms of that. So you get those above garage apartments that are now available if you have a large lot and you need a place for your mother-in-law to stay. She's not quite ready for the nursing home, but she can't quite do it by herself anymore. You can build that cottage in your backyard, assuming you have a large enough lot. We're moving away from the requirement that an accessory dwelling unit be contained within your home and allowing you to go out onto your property. You could use this as a rental unit. We are not restricting that. It is your property. If you want to develop it with a unit that you rent out and use your property as an income property, in that way you can do that. As long as you own both the home and the accessory dwelling unit, you cannot condoize it. That was an important one to note here. You do need to own the primary structure and own the accessory dwelling unit. But other than running a business out of it, we're not restricting the use of that accessory dwelling unit. So with that, I would stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are any other cities in the state doing this so far?
Chairman Offerdall, Commissioner Goodman, not that I'm aware of. However, I will point out that Minot is feeling the crunch of housing a little bit harder than some of them. Sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures, and with Sentinel on the way, which no other communities in the state are facing, and with North American Iron becoming more and more potential for development every day, we are looking at a crunch that's a little bit higher than some of the other than some of the oil field. But, oil's not booming right now, so they're not looking at it either. We're looking at a couple of stressors on our housing market that that have led our housing study to specifically call out some strategies that may or may not fit for other communities.
I think this is a great step forward when we look at other cities across the country who are already doing many things like this.
And Chairman Offerdale, Commissioner Goodman, this is supported by American Planners Association. It's good planning. You maximize your infill development as opposed to, I mean, we're growing food out there on the periphery. So I think sometimes folks forget that's where our groceries come from, is out there. And the more of it we build houses on, the less we have to grow groceries. So.
Would anything stop a resident from doing like a short-term rental on like on an ADU?
Chairman Offerdale, Commissioner Parker, no. We're not restricting it. If you want to use it as an income property, you can use it as an income property. It's your property. That's really the only business you'd be allowed to operate out of it, though. You can't build an accessory dwelling unit and then run your, accounting firm out of it.
And the reason I ask is, with Fair Week coming up, I know that, accommodations are limited to all the people that come flocking to Minot. So I personally think that'd be a good idea to allow people to do that. So,
Chairman Offerdale, Commissioner Parker, we do not restrict those short-term rentals at all in our LEO. Some communities in North Dakota have chosen to go that way. We have two reasons. One, we don't know how to craft language that's legal. A lot of it's getting challenged. And two, we don't have the staff to police it. Even if we did try to restrict the use of it or place restrictions or regulations on short-term rentals, we have no staff to enforce them.
Thank you.
So,
Go ahead.
Sorry, Chairman Offerdahl. I love the idea. I have a concern because it is, as long as they own it, not reside in it. But it's just one unit, right? We're not going to take a single household and split it up into like 4 units.
Chairman Offerdale, Commissioner Pontanilli, yes, they are only entitled to a single accessory dwelling unit per residential lot. So the maximum density we could see being accomplished is similar to a duplex.
Okay.
would the new setbacks that we were just talking about apply to ADUs as well? So the reduction in size on how close they need to be to the front or back?
Chairman Offerdale, Commissioner Parker, yes. That is our structural setback for residential units. So yes, it would apply to both the ADU, anything that's large enough that requires a building permit, it applies to.
Any questions for city staff? Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody in attendance wish to speak for or against this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Ziegler and a second by Commissioner Goodman. Any discussion? Discussion. See none, call roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanilla,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, now we are moving on to change number 6. We were approached by an alderman. We've seen a few of these plats recently with the zone changes and the land swaps. I was directed to do research as to see if there were any way to save them time. The answer to that question is no. I can't save them any time. I can save them a little bit of money. So here's where we landed. On minor subdivisions, we see you guys don't see these minor subdivisions. They come in and they are administratively brought by me directly to city council for approval on their consent agenda. These are, I want to buy 5 feet from my neighbor and we're going to shift our property line over 5 feet. That's the type of plats we're talking about here. Where we run into a problem is I want to buy 5 feet from my neighbor and his property's zoned R3 and mine's zoned R2. So if you see in here, does not involve, so they're minor subdivisions, it's a list of, if it doesn't violate any of these, it's a minor subdivision. If it violates any of these, it's a major subdivision, comes to you. So number 3 is did not involve lots with more than one zoning district. So we've seen a couple of them recently where, you know, property line was just shifting a little bit, but one zoned ag and one zoned R1. So it has to go through planning commission, public hearing, city council, first reading, second reading. So what we found out is that North Dakota Century Code 40-47-06 is the reasoning behind that process. So we can put the exception when the proposed lot line adjustment encompasses 10% or less of the square footage of the parcel of land being taken from a minor subdivision plat can be used and existing zoning, both parcels adjusted with the lot lines. However, minor plats applications that also include a zone change application will require a public hearing before the City of Minot Planning Commission with a final report and recommendation to be provided to the City Council, City of Minot City Council in compliance with that NDCC 40-47-06. Minor plat applications with attached zoning change requests will be completed only with the passage of the zoning map amendment approval on second reading by the City of Minot's City Council. Now, I did a deep dive in North Dakota Century Code, and the reasoning behind this is that we have an extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction. And the only board on which the extraterritorial zoning residents have direct representation appointed by the county commission is the planning commission. So when a zone change, when changes to zoning, either our map or our document, come to the planning commission for recommendation, that is where those ETJ residents have direct opportunity. You're my planning commissioner. I can call you. I live in the ETJ. You represent the ETJ. I want you to express my concerns to the planning commission. Zoning is the area over we have authority outside of our corporate limits on these folks. And this is the board. You guys are also the zoning board. You've been designated. You're the planning. We call you the planning commission, but you're the planning commission and you're the zoning board. So, the reasoning in Century Code, you can tell that the spirit of the code as it was written was anytime you're changing or dealing with zoning because it affects people outside of corporate limits, not just folks inside of the corporate limits who can vote for city council members. It needs to go to planning commission. It needs to come with a recommendation from planning commission to city council so that those people have the opportunity to come here, have a public hearing where they can have their voices heard, and it's directly to people who are appointed to represent them. So so we can't save them anytime. They still need to come here. I could bring you a minor plat with a zone change. It could just be a minor plat. Now, they may save some money on their surveying costs. I don't know, and I cannot speak to the difference between the cost of a quote from a surveying company on a minor plat versus a major plat. I do know that when they do a major plat, they have to pay the surveyor to provide the preliminary and the final plat. Here, they would only have to have them provide the minor plat. I cannot speak to how much money that would save them. I can only say that there may or may not be a difference in the quote that they receive from their surveyor. It would save them $300 on their application fee for the city of Minot. I would also like to state that staff then just has to do all the same amount of work that they do for a major plat. So the applicant saves $300, the taxpayers do not. We still have to do that work. We still have to send out those public hearing notifications. Dan and I still have to write staff reports. We still have to answer all those questions that come in when we publicly notice things. We still have to assess the plat the same way we would a major plat. So it's important to point out that the applicant will save $300. The taxpayers may or may not save $300. Again, this was an exercise I was directed by an alderman to bring this language for discussion. I don't know how this one's going to go at city council. I can only say that the code that I provided here is written in compliance with North Dakota Century Code and would allow a minor plat with a zoning change application attached to it to be brought to this body for consideration. It would then still need first and second reading at city council because it is an ordinance change with an attached ordinance. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for city staff? Thank you.
Mr. Diedrichson, in your professional opinion, do you feel like this is a forward move for our community or kind of a lateral move?
Chairman Offedall, Commissioner Baumann, I feel like this would be a lateral move. The goal was to see if through my research I could find a way to save time, and the answer is no. So I'm kind of bringing this back to city council as we did the research, and it's just not possible. Not without a change in legislation on the requirements for public hearing for zone change. So short answer, it's a lateral move.
Thanks.
Even as a lateral move, by the applicant is still looked at as favorable in terms of supporting development and change.
Chairman Offedall, Commissioner Goodman, the reason I can't speak to that is because I cannot speak to the change in cost of that surveying. Because they're still going to do all the same work. A preliminary plat is just printing out a PDF of a major plat, of a final plat, you know. Is there really a significant difference in the amount of work that your surveyor is billing you for? I cannot speak to that. And so I can't really tell you whether this is a development-friendly change because the goal, again, was stated, can we save them any time? And the answer is no. Century Code requires a public hearing in front of this body and then 2 hearings in front of City Council. Nothing changes as far as that goes. So it's going through the same time frame as a major plat would go through because here a preliminary plat would be brought to you. It would be brought to City Council. City Council would approve the preliminary plat and approve the zoning on first reading, and then the final plat would be submitted, and the zone change and the final plat would go through on zone change on second reading and final plat on consent. So the time frame is the same. A hearing in front of Planning Commission, a hearing in front of City Council, another hearing in front of City Council. What their hearing changes, one is, a minor plat with zone change and second reading of a zone change, whereas then it's preliminary plat first reading, final plat second reading. So the title of the staff report changes, but it takes the same amount of time.
Any other discussion for city staff? Any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on behalf of this agenda item or against this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak at all on this agenda item? Now's your time, public hearing. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
I know we didn't provide staff recommendations on 1 by 1. Staff would recommend approval of this just because it was a directive from City Council to bring language for them to discuss. And ultimately, a lateral move, like I'm not going to recommend you deny it because it's a lateral move. My recommendation would be recommendation of approval and allow City Council to have the discussion that they ask for.
Move to approve.
Second.
We got a motion to approve by Commissioner Goodman, second by Commissioner Parker. Any discussion?
I'm going to support this, but also maybe just kind of putting this out into the universe. It seems like it's also the will of at least the previous city council to maybe make sure that user fees are commensurate with the amount of staff and city and taxpayer dollars that are needed to support that. So it kind of seems like in that vein, it maybe wouldn't be wise to require our staff to do all the same things, but now giving people a loophole to avoid paying user fees. I don't know. I'm just, again, thinking out loud on that.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanila,
Yes.
Amick,
No.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Excuse me. All right. Change number 7. City Council directed staff to explore another way to increase housing supply. Our housing study identified that we need to be building many more homes. Setback minimums have been identified as a potential avenue to get home prices down and affordable. This district would enable denser form of single-family detached housing. So I'll go through this, but essentially the spirit of this district is we just earlier tonight recommended R2 reducing setbacks and those, allowing twin homes. This district goes a little bit further and a little bit more dense. So this would be close to the PUD that was approved in Stonebridge. So that type of density, that level of density of homes, but this would require a district change we're going to do specifically a row home district. Think urban row homes, that detached row homes, or attached or detached row homes here. So the R3 detached row home district, R3D, is established as a district which the principal use of land shall be row home dwellings. R3D falls in the suburban residential or in urban residential land use categories of the City of Minot's comprehensive plan, with a density range of 6 to 12 dwelling units per acre. R3D parcels should be immediately abutting or across the street from existing single-family home residentials where row homes are more compatible versus multi-story, multi-family developments. So the layman's terms, use this as a buffer between single-family homes and apartment buildings. So you have mixed use. We've seen them all over where they got the apartments and the single-family homes. These are meant as an alternative to twin homes for a buffer. All uses in this district are either permitted, conditional, accessory, or interim, and can be found in Table 2.2, Table of Uses. Any regulations applicable to a specific use can be found in Article 4, Standards specific to uses and districts. So, maximum height of building would be 35 feet, accessory buildings 16 feet. Maximum lot coverage is 50%. That is a little bit higher than R2. Front setback is 20 feet. Unless you're facing an arterial or collector, then it's 40. Front and side load garage is down 15. Side with interior lot line is 5 feet whenever units are joined. Street side is 20 feet. Street side facing a collector or arterial is 40. Rear is 15. Minimum width is 32 feet for interior lots and 48 feet for corner lots. Interior lot minimum is 3,800 square feet. Miscellaneous uses, detailed site development requirements refer to Article 3 standards general to all development. Again, this is an increased density over R2. It's a buffer zone for mixed density neighborhoods. It would require a zone change. We have no uses in the table. This is kind of like those overlay districts. We are We brought it to you for discussion. We would establish the district, and then we'd come back with further text amendments, placing this on the use table and, duplexes, triplexes, row homes, single-family homes. It would be similar to the RM district in allowed uses, but is what staff is envisioning. But that be a further text amendment. At this point, we're just establishing a district on paper, not on the map. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff? Any questions? Okay.
I think I just want to take a moment to say good job to be creative with all the different levers and buttons that are available to kind of, again, tackle this monster of a housing deficit. I'm really pleased to see that not only are we using the tools in the toolbox, but we're building a few tools in the toolbox too. So good job, staff. This is really exciting to see, and I'm grateful for it.
Thank you. Any further questions for city staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on behalf of this agenda item or opposed to this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
I'll go ahead and move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Vice Chair Bauman and second by Commissioner Goodwin. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, call a roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanila,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Final change. Number 8, proposal of park fee removals. So this was directed by an alderman to bring language for discussion to City Council for removal of all reference to park fees to be collected on commercial or residential developments within the city of Minot. No direction was given to supplement the text with any additional guidance to staff, only that all reference to park fees and park land dedication be removed from our land development ordinance. So, as you can see, that comprises the bulk of Chapter 10, Public Land Dedication. This removes Section 10.4-1, which is the purpose, and the purpose is pretty much collecting fees in order to help to maintain and expand the park network within the city of Minot. Applicability, it's applicable to all residential, commercial, and industrial developments. Section 10.4-3 is the procedure. So the procedure is building permits are submitted to the Community Development Department and our Building Safety Department. They are processed through, I, as the planner, review all commercial and industrial permits. Dan reviews all residential permits. And so in any of these permits that are on properties within subdivisions in which land was not dedicated for parks, a park fee in lieu of dedication is applied to each one of those permits. If you're inside of a subdivision where land was dedicated for a park, you're exempt from park fees. There's types of land dedication. We'll break that down to essentially what our LDO says. You got to sit down at the table with the park district and they have to accept your land. You can't just set aside land, give it to the park district without their approval. You have to sit down at the table and have the discussion with them. Do you want the land? That also relies heavily on our comprehensive plan in our future land use map. If you've ever actually pulled it up online, you can see the big P's and little P's all over the map. That is where our comprehensive plan says we need a community or a neighborhood or a pocket park. Parks need to be established in these areas. We see a need for a park in this area. Generally, that guides the discussion of whether or not you're going to dedicate parkland. The fee per unit of land, that is just kind of outlines the fee in lieu of. Land dedication is here. It's just total amount of fees generated to develop the full build out. Fair market value is established. So there's the breakdown of the fee structure there within the box. Combined land and fee per unit dedication. Land suitability. Land has to be suitable and accepted. Timing and maintenance has to do with city council, subdivider, park and open space land shall lender in deed. It says deed requirements. Section 10.4-11 covers payment. Essentially, payment is collected by the city of Minot with their building permit. It's a fee attached to a building permit, and then the money is dispersed to the park district. Section 10.4, it would be -1. It used to be 13, has private parks. You can see some of that is staying in there. Homeowners associations will remain, and then the rest of the changes is just renumbering to account for the removal of the sections previous. Again, this was directed by Alderman to remove all reference to park land and park fees within our LDO. City Council has requested this language be crafted and brought to them for their discussion. With that, I will stand for questions.
Why
Thank you.
was it there in the first place? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Chairman Offerdall, Commissioner Pontanilla, it's the comprehensive plan of the city of Minot supports the development of parks as a community amenity and sees the need for them. One way that we have supported the park district, because they have no way of knowing when a building permit is submitted and the value of that permit or anything like that, and so it was just easiest for the city to collect the fee for them and disperse it to them. It's just a way to provide, it's supposed to provide for future parks and operation and maintenance of our current parks and things of that nature. It's to support parks as we build out. We are building out, you need more parks. We are overseeing the development and the build out of the city, and so we need to be keeping an eye on where do we need parks and collecting money so that the park district can continue to expand their network.
Okay, so if we take this away, are we taking away the support of the parks?
We would no longer be collecting that revenue for parks.
Or the build out in the areas, or requiring the build out of the areas?
Collection of revenue for the parks district would no longer be tied to development within the city.
If a developer didn't want to pay the fee, though, all they would have to do is provide green space for a park to go into eventually, correct?
Chairman Offerdall, Commissioner Parker, that's assuming that a park is planned for the area and the park district accepts their property.
So if that didn't happen, the parks department's like, nope, we're good, the fee would still be waived because the developer at least gave them the opportunity to.
No, they would have to provide that park fees at $1,000 per dwelling unit, and then it's $1,000 per, I want to say, $1 million.
0.1% of commercial
Yeah,
valuation.
0.1% of the permit value on a commercial property. It's a fee in lieu of dedication.
But even if they tried to dedicate it, the city wouldn't have to accept that and could still be like, nope, we want the fee.
It's the park district that has to
Excuse
accept the
me, yeah.
property, yes. But if land is not accepted and dedicated within a subdivision, then the fee is due for each building permit within the subdivision. That's to support the new park in the next subdivision over where the master plan has identified a need for a park.
Any questions?
Just curious for staff, how many times have you worked, well, let me preface this. In the 6 years I've been on the Planning Commission, I have not seen much or any discussion about parks dedications for it, so it just hasn't really been on the radar at all. How often do you get pushback or questions from developers about it?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Bauman, more times than not, we get pushback on the fee itself being attached to a residential or commercial building permit. We don't have this discussion. So much of our development has been focused on infill of existing, those zombie subs. We have been so focused on getting those built out. We haven't had a lot of major subdivisions that have been platted that needed park dedication in order to not have this fee. A few subdivisions you've dealt with recently, Highlands at North Hill had a park dedication within it, so there was no park fees associated with that. Stonebridge has parkland dedication within it, so there's no fees within there. But then there are some other larger ones. Bolton Heights, I do not believe, has any parkland dedicated within it, so they will pay park fees on each unit within that one as we build out. There's other subdivisions. It's depends on the subdivision itself. But we've been dealing with build out of existing subdivisions since 2011, when all of these were platted right after the flood and after, that 2011 to 2015, right after the flood and right after the boom. So many were platted that we haven't had a lot of major plats since then, where dedication of land discussions were even taking place. So mostly we're dealing with older subdivisions that may or may not have had parkland dedicated in it. And the frustration is, if there was no parkland dedicated in it, now there's these fees attached to building permits that would not be attached to building permits that are happening in subdivisions where parkland was dedicated. So we mostly see pushback at the time of permitting.
Thanks. And for those developers like Bolton Heights, is that an option that they can dedicate some of that land rather than developing it for the parks if they approve it?
That would have to be a discussion that developer had with the Parks District. We're generally not even brought to the table in those discussions. They happen between the developer and the Park District, and then the parkland dedication comes in on the plat or it doesn't. And that conversation is had before they meet with us for the first time.
I guess my fear would be is that if we passed something like this, that you'd have no incentive for future developers to put any type of parkland whatsoever. So theoretically, at least what I'm envisioning in my mind is subdivisions going up over the next 10, 15, 20 years and be like, nope, we don't have to pay a fee and we can make more money if we just develop every single inch out for no green space, and we are either left with no green space or the Parks Department is left holding the bag on a budget that's going to be dwindling on how to provide the green space for a growing population.
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Parker, I will tell you that's on a developer-to-developer basis. Some of them would very much come in with that attitude, and I see a lot of developers that come in that see parks as an amenity, and it's a lot easier to sell the houses I want to build if there's a park in the neighborhood, because I'm not going to get any families that want to move in here if the nearest park is 3 miles away and the kids got to cross 2 busy roads to get to it. It's just a developer to developer basis. You see some of them that absolutely see parks as an amenity. They want a park, they want to sit down at the table at the park district. And if the park district won't take land dedication, they're going to put a private park in there and start a homeowners association because they want to park there. Sometimes budget restraints, park district wants to say yes, but they can't, They have a budget just as tight as ours. And so sometimes they choose to do, maybe it's just a private green space with a swing set on it, but they want something because that developer sees it as amenity. Some don't. Some just see it, oh, that's another developable lot that I'm missing out on.
I think it's a fine balance between trying to figure out how we be developer friendly, but we also focus on quality of life and what do we want our city to look like and be.
Chairman Offerdall, Commissioner Goodman, that is the balancing act we try to use our comprehensive plan to achieve. Where do we draw that line? What is developer friendly, but also what do we want our community to look like? What do we want the road map to where we are to where we want to be to look like? That's what our comprehensive plan is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a map from where we are to where we want to be. And we as a community get to decide what that map looks like.
Wonder how much money we would even be saving potential residents. You know, if you waive the fee, does that savings go to the, per purchase price of the house? Does that go down and encourage, new residents to come in and have affordable housing? Or, are developers really not coming to Minot because there's a park development fee? And I don't know. I'm asking the question, kind of throwing it out there, but that's what's on my mind.
Chairman Offerdall, Commissioner Parker, again, I believe that's developer to developer basis, whether they're absorbing that cost or they're passing it on to their customers. It also probably depends on the price of the house, how much that really affects the decision making. A small affordable home, $1,000 makes a difference. If you're building a $850,000 house, I doubt that $1,000 makes a difference to that potential buyer.
Any other discussion for city staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody in attendance that wishes to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Patiently waiting.
Yes.
Save the best for last, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to thank you all for allowing me to speak today. Good evening to members of the Planning Commission, city staff. I am Ellie DeLawyers. I am the Executive Director of the Minot Park District. So I just wanted to give you guys a brief history of how we got here. I was at the Park District. I wasn't the main person at the table when this was put together, but I just want to give you some history and then answer any questions that I can on our end. So in 2014, the Minot Park District and the Minot City Council came together with a shared forward-thinking vision. We launched the Public Land Dedication Ordinance. The philosophy was simple: as Minot grows, our public spaces need to grow alongside it. We wanted to work hand in hand with developers to ensure our families have parks and green spaces without placing all that financial burden back on just our current property owners. To maintain flexibility, as we've discussed, their ordinance does provide two options between dedicating actual land or contributing a fee to that land. Over the years, we've worked collectively with city staff to streamline execution. It has resulted in better communication, smoother implementation, and increased functionality and efficiency. One other note I want to talk about, because I know it's been a part of discussions from what I've gathered, is starting this fall, the Minot Park District will begin receiving the voter-approved tax and sales tax. Let me be entirely clear about that and what that tax achieves. It will directly reduce property taxes while providing dollars for operations and allowing us to tackle critical overdue maintenance projects across existing parks and facilities. While the sales tax allows us to fix and maintain what we currently have, the public land dedication is a tool for long-range planning. A healthy organization must do both. We must maintain our current assets today while preserving a clear vision for tomorrow. So I just want to make that perfectly clear that, well, yes, the Minot Park District right now, we are looking at maintenance. We also have long-range planning that we want to complete, and this is a tool in our toolbox to keep that moving forward. We understand that no ordinance is perfect. As much as everybody around the table works hard that they are, we know that there are tweaks that can be made. We are completely open to sitting down, having a constructive conversation, and finding solutions to any operational friction points.
We work closely with city staff, and if developers and council members have valid concerns, we want to address them. So at this time, I will open up to any questions that you guys have that I can answer. We want to continue to move forward. We have a growth mindset at the Minot Park District. I'm very happy of where we're at, but we just want the opportunity to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you. Any questions?
So I have one that maybe I can direct to you, and you might be better able to answer. So if we had a future developer come up and say, hey, this is not a fee that we want to pay for, we want to dedicate some land, how open is the park district to that? Are there situations where you'd be like, no, we're not open to that, we want you to pay the fee?
Absolutely, and we have done that in the past. And, you know, that kind of depends on the master plan that we have in place. We work with the city on their master plan. You know, if it's something that they're willing to put in a sidewalk or a connection to another one, we can say, okay, that is quality of life, that's an improvement, we're gonna waive the fee. We are more than open to having those conversations and making sure that we can work with them. Now, you know, sometimes we're gonna have to agree to disagree, and the fee is going to be what's put in place, but we are definitely open to all the conversations.
So to take an example that we talked about earlier tonight, we talked about an easement for a sidewalk that would allow residents to utilize a park that was further south of the development. That would be acceptable in the Parks Department's point of view.
Correct. Yep.
Any other questions?
What do you think the impact on the park would be, or on the parks would be, if this fee language was removed?
You know, my biggest concern with removing it completely is exactly what you guys were just talking about before the public hearing opened up, is we want to make sure we are at the table when these discussions are happening with these bigger developments, and making sure that public and open space is a part of that conversation. Now, once again, we work very closely with city staff. I know that they have a very big vision, they have a master plan, but having the people who would be there to implement it at the table, I think, is a huge bonus, so we are all on the same page. I think removing it completely would take away that ability for us to be at that table. And I don't want that to happen. I think removing it completely would us be taking a step back as a community, in my opinion.
Any other questions? Okay, we may call you back up.
All right, thank you guys for your
Thank you.
time.
Public hearing is still open.
Good evening again. Two parts to this, a developer standpoint, builder standpoint. It all comes down to money, is what everything comes down to. Developer, you don't want to give up that extra piece of dirt. Highlands, for example, $100,000 to put a park in and gave up a piece of dirt. That balanced out because there's 120 homes up there. Ramstead development, we put 80 homes in there. What'd we get from Parks Department? 0. Bolton Heights put 26 homes in there. What'd we get from Parks? 0. The $1,000 park fee that they're putting on there is an initiation fee. It's not people, it's people moving to the area. They haven't used the parks yet. This is a fee put on ahead of time. Those people moving into that house that's being built pay the property taxes from the day they move in. They're already paying for the Parks Department. Another $1,000 fee, that's more than our average building permit is less than what that parks fee is. As a builder, we go in to pick up a building permit, might be $950, $875 plus sewer fees and that. The parks fee is $1,000. The second part, brought up the sales tax. Every builder in the city limits here now pays us alone $12,000 to $15,000 a year. We paid 50 property owners additional, that savings in their property tax because of that half-cent increase in biomaterials. Just the volume that we do. And every builder, they pay that additional half-cent that goes into the cost of that home. So you talk about, affordable housing, every fee that gets added onto that building permit is a cost passed on to a homeowner. And it just, I've sat by and, you know, watched it happen time and time again with all, Stonebridge, we got a lot of properties in there to build out. It's got a park, so there's no fees to it. We have a 63 lot plat in Tolberg coming up, $63,000. Well, we can't afford to give up a lot. We can't afford to build a park, so we give $1,000 on every lot to the Parks Department, and we get zero out of it. The future homeowners, they start the day they move in, they start getting use of the facilities, but they're paying for it already on their property taxes and the sales tax that they spend in the city of Minot. So the $1,000 fee is an initiation fee. It's a fee that is for nothing. It goes into the general fund and helps with existing problems with the Parks Department. So to me, it shouldn't be even imposed for, especially on a building permit side. You know, parks can, you know, you should have to justify. You can't take money and not get something for it. That's what they're doing. They're taking money from us. House gets built, they get the money from the property taxes. They're taking money for a service not rendered. It's just a junk fee. It goes into the general fund. So, thank you.
Okay, public hearing still open. Anybody wish to speak for or against?
Just one point of clarification, the parkland dedication fee does not go into our general fund, it goes into the Park District Foundation for it to build in order to have enough to build either a park or amenity in a certain location. So it doesn't go back into our general fund, it goes into the Park Foundation.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on this agenda item? Public hearing still open.
Chairman Offerdall, if I might just add one additional thing, it's possible I've been here longer than maybe some of the people, and we haven't done a lot of plats recently. So we've talked about fees and land dedication as the two options. We've also done hybrid options. There's at least a couple subdivisions that I can think of where maybe like a large park area wasn't what the park district needed, but there was some sort of amenity that could be added, and they did that, and then had a reduced fee. Instead of the $1,000, it was a $300 a lot or something. So there is an in-between also. It just kind of goes into a negotiation with the park district and the developer. So just wanted to add that for thought.
Thank you.
Chairman Offerdall, if I may.
Yes.
And a good example of that is the Galusha Ranch addition. They added a multi-use trail, and instead of the $1,000 per dwelling unit, they pay $381. So it got bumped down.
Okay.
66%.
Yeah, I feel like there could be a compromise here instead of removing the language completely, that there could be something that works on both. But that's just my inside thoughts here.
Chairman Offerdall, it's important to note that the city, we don't set that. We just collect the fees. They negotiate with Parks District.
Right.
For those amenities versus fees versus all of that. We're supporting parks in that we're the issuer of the permit. And so we're really the only, for lack of a better word, point of sale that's between the developer and the permit. And so that's why we collect the fee. It's just been in support of our Parks District.
Right. Okay, public hearing is still open if anybody wishes to speak for or against. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and I'll turn it over to commissioners for a motion. And I guess
I would like-
I'll just clear here that I'm assuming that a motion or a motion for would be the removal of all the language, right?
Yes, a motion for approval would be to remove all of this language from the LDO. A motion for denial would be to just simply leave it as is without removal.
And then in that case, it still goes to city council for discussion.
It's just a recommendation to city
This is
council,
just a
yes.
recommendation that we're recommending to city council, correct? Okay.
Move to maintain the park language as is.
I
with
would
no
second
change.
that.
Second.
I'm sorry, could you clarify that?
Yes,
I didn't
hold on.
quite hear you.
Yeah.
Move to maintain the park language as is with no change, so not striking it from the current.
So that would be a motion to deny. Okay.
And I would second the denial.
So right now, we have a motion to deny by Commissioner Goodman and a second by Commissioner Amick. Discussion.
I'm going to be supporting denying this in part because I think the Parks District and our parks are some of the best parts of living in Minot, and some of the things that the programming they provide, the spaces they provide, are things that young families and old families alike mention as some of their favorite memories, favorite parts of being in this community. And I agree with Mr. Laurier's that we don't really want to move backwards at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm going to echo some of that sentiment too, and also think that just the direction we feel like we're going here, there is no direction. And I feel like the city of Minot and developers and the Parks Department can get together and come up with something that works for the community and works for the developers. So I too will be approval for the denial.
That was kind of my level of thinking too, is, bringing parks to the discussion and then letting them work it out versus not even having that opportunity.
I agree. I think that there should be a happy medium. I think removing it completely is extreme.
I had one comment. My thought here is I'm going to vote no on the denial because we're being asked to send this to City Council for them to have the discussion. And so I guess with the hard work that was done here, I see both sides, and we use the parks. My family does, and we love them. But also, we talk a lot about developers needing help to have incentive to work here. So that's just my thought.
Any other discussion?
I would like to add too, I absolutely agree. I think, development is important and affordable housing is important, especially as our city continues to grow. I do think that parks are important too, however. The staff, though, has done a great job in a lot of these initiatives. I think we've made a lot of, good strides tonight in helping development out as well. But in my mind, I would like to keep things balanced. If this is something that we decide as a city, as a council to revisit at a later time, because we think that maybe that's necessary, then that's I'm sure that's still on the table in the future. However, right now my feelings are this is probably something good to keep. So,
Any further discussion? Okay, call a roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanilla,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
No.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Reich,
Yes.
Parker,
yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item 6, personal appearances. Did we get any personal appearances? Okay, we'll move on to item number 7, miscellaneous and discussion items. Do we have any?
Staff has no miscellaneous or discussion items.
You guys were busy enough with all that text amendment. You didn't have time, huh? Okay. Any commissioners have any miscellaneous or discussion items? All right, moving on to agenda item number 8, and that would be adjournment. Meeting is adjourned.